With the icebreaker, though, we did do Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, you know, on that side of the, before you went north in Canada. So fortunately, I did see some of the world, if not a lot of the top of the world.
Did you go below the equator with the San Pablo?
No.
No, it was all the
Yeah.
it was all North
I mean, you could go far south as a little south of Haiti, but you're still a distance. I mean, I know we could see like Venezuela. On a clear day, you could see Venezuela, but never south of the equator.
Okay. What happened when you were done at the San Pablo? Where were you?
Well, the ship was going to go out on a cruise again, and I was considered a short timer due to get out, so I was transferred to the USS Great Sitkin, which was an ammunition ship. I never went out on her, but I was billeted aboard her, and the home port there was New York, Brooklyn Navy Yard, so that wasn't bad. It was a subway ride to Queens, New York.
And what year was that?
That would have been in 1955.
So you were there just short of a month or two, or before you were discharged?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Did you consider staying in?
Not really, even though, you know, the E6 came up. Maybe it's because I didn't feel I had the qualifications to go to OCS, or I was never approached on it. And but again, my inspiration was my dad and the Navy, so I really had not thought about going on.
So you were discharged in New York?
Fort Hamilton, New York, Brooklyn Navy Shipyard, not Fort Hamilton.
What did you do when you got out?
Came home, I took the subway home, the 8th Avenue subway to 34th Avenue and Steinway Street, and came home, and I can remember my mother saying, okay, you're home, when do you start work? Because we were Depression babies, you know, in the 30s, and as kids, my brother and I worked to support the family. This is prior to going into the service. And I took advantage of the GI Bill. So I felt I wasn't ready academically to go right into college. So I went to NYU for one semester to take English literature or something, just to get me into that mode. And then in September of that year, '55, I started my college career at St. John's University. And the GI Bill covered the tuition and the books. And it took me 5 years to graduate, only because you also had to live. So I had to, the first 2 years I went days, the next 3 years I went nights, because I was working during the day and then going to school at night. Okay. And I graduated with a Bachelor of Business Administration.
And what did you do from a career standpoint? From
a career standpoint, I just remember going to job interviews for management position, junior management, I forget what the term was, and being told you're too old to go into our management programs. Well, that's because I had 4 years in the Navy, 4 years in college, 5 years in college, and then I'm out, so they call that too old. But through my father-in-law, may his soul rest in peace, I became connected with the New York Life Insurance Company. So for 37 years, that was my career. I spent 37 years as an agent, an insurance agent, then into sales management, sales training, and then I did the remaining years at New York Life in the home office in Director of Compliance.
How do you feel your Navy experience helped you in your business career?
It helped me quite a bit. First of all, the small jobs I had before going into the Navy, even working before I was old enough to have working papers, gave me the discipline. It gave me the sales background. And in the Navy, where you had to get up at 6, and you did, 8 hours on and 4 hours of watch and then 8 hours on. By the way, another reason for going into the supply department, I didn't have to stand watches as I did as a deck aide. but you were disciplined, and you had a chief petty officer who was in charge of you. You really couldn't shirk your duty. There was no place to hide on a ship. You had your job, you did your job, and I was disciplined enough, you know, to do what I was told to do, and it turned out great for me.
That's great.
Yeah.
Tell me when you met Joan.
Well, the story I tell is that I'm home on leave in my dress blues. It was a spring day, sitting on a park bench in Astoria Park, and I heard a voice behind me say, "Hi, sailor, looking for a good time." Well, that's the story I tell, but Joni won't let me tell it. We were in the same parish, in the same choir, in Precious Blood in Astoria. She was in the choir and I was in the choir, but we really didn't know each other. And we both had a dance at a neighboring parish, St. Joseph's Parish. They had a dance, and she was there and I was there, and we were able to get telephone numbers. That's must have been the modus operandi in those days. You got to get the telephone number. I got Joni's telephone number, and we married, and we'll be married in June. I think it'll be 53 years. We have our son Anthony and our daughter Regina. Anthony lives here in the Hillsdale area. Regina is married, lives in South Jersey, and we have a wonderful daughter-in-law, Marianne, and they presented us with a grandson, Alex, and a granddaughter, Regina.
Oh, that's nice. When did you move to Hillsdale?
In 1970, so we're like 42 years in Hillsdale from Queens.
Where did you live before that, in Queens?
In Queens. A number of apartments in Queens. It just started out, newly married, not much money. I can remember the first apartment was a 3.5 room, and you could stand in the living room and, you know, turn around and you saw the room, and paying $46 a month rent. You know, when you think back of what it was like in those days, but it's all back, GIs coming home had the same situation.
Just different
Yeah.
times. Yeah.
I mentioned to you about my father was very patriotic and enlisted in the United States Navy in World War II with a family, a wife and 4 kids. There was my brother Bobby, who later on went into the Army, was drafted in the Army, and my 2 sisters, my older sister, younger than I, but the older of the 2 was Frances, and my baby sister was Geraldine. We all lived in this 5 or 6 room railroad apartment in Astoria, Queens, but they're still alive, and we keep in touch with them. My brother has since passed on, but I do keep in touch with my sisters, and they're part of this story of my life.
When did you join the American Legion?
Come July 1 of this year, I'll be 25 years in the American Legion. And like so many guys in the Legion today, it was Dem Healy Sr. who recruited me. I remember that one Memorial Day, I was in the crowd, and Dem Healy said, join the Legion. And I joined the Legion through Dem Healy, and have not regretted since.
What positions have you held in the post?
Well, early on, when the post, I have in my files a letter from Herman Ruffini. He was a past commander. Herman called an emergency meeting in the evening, and I did come, and there was only maybe about 20 of us. At that point, the post was down to 88 members, and maybe 6 were active. And the county commander said, guys, what do you want to do? Put a lock on the door or keep this place open? And thank God Herman Ruffini stepped up to the plate, says, okay, I'll try it, you know, for a year to be commander. And Herman appointed me as the membership chairman, and I've been membership chairman now for the last 11 years. And we built it up, you know, through new members, new blood. And I don't know if we had vice commanders going a half a dozen years ago, I'm not sure. But when Vinnie McCarthy followed Herman Ruffini as commander, and Vinnie stepped down, I stepped up, and I served 2 years as the commander.
Can you tell what the lasting impression you had of your Navy experience, and what would you recommend to young people today with regard to the military?
I think every boy and girl, young man, young lady, coming out of high school, before they went to college, do 2 years of service. My feeling is today we have these limited wars or areas of conflict, and we have, thank God for the voluntary armed services stepping up to the plate and defending the country, but doing multiple tours of duty. And it's taxing on them. It's just not right, it's not fair. My feeling today would be that if there's another conflict, you bring it to Congress. Under the Constitution, Congress can declare war. Let Congress declare war, or let's stay out of this. These conflicts that last 5 or 10 years, where you don't even know, who the enemy is, and you have these guys doing multiple deployments, it's just not right. So my feeling is that the defense of the country should be shared amongst all the boys and girls.
Is there anything else you wanted to add to the conversation that I might have left out?
Only that the 4 years in the Navy, I'm so proud of it. When you're in there and you're doing it, there are days on a rolling North Atlantic saying, I enlisted, I'm doing this by my own design, where you say, that was the wrong, but you forget those times really, and you forget all the good times and the shipmates that you met to the point that we have annual ship reunions, and where we keep in touch with each other through the years, and to have done well in the Navy, that my father, who was a Navy veteran, was proud of me.
George, you mentioned when we talked previously that you served during the Korean War,
right.
Which is wartime service, which to be a member of the American Legion, you have to serve at a time of war. How aware were you at that time in the early 1950s while you were aboard ship as to what was going on, and how did you get, what kind of communications was available to you in news?
Well, by the nature of the duty on an icebreaker in the Arctic, there's very little communications. You didn't have cell phones, you didn't have laptops, iPads, you didn't have notebooks, you didn't have television satellites, but once a day, someone aboard ship would put out a newsletter, like a one-page newsletter, as to what's happening in the world. Aside from that, you got very little information as to what was happening, in the world. And again, up there, even getting mail was a problem, because in the Navy, ships would carry mail from the port they just left, going to a certain area, and then they would transfer that mail to another ship, who did not get mail. In the Arctic, you didn't have ships going back and forth that you could get mail that easily. I remember we lost like 37,000 Americans were killed in the Korean War.
George, could you tell us about the medals that you were awarded?
Yes. When you do leave the service and you have these commendations and medals, you really don't think much about them. You kind of put them in your drawer. And then a couple of Christmases ago, my wife Joan broke them out and had them mounted, as you see there. And the medals are primarily the European occupation, the European Navy occupation, the national defense. They're all mounted there together with my original dog tags. As you get older, you appreciate, what you did do, and so these have more meanings today. I'm finding out in recruiting new members that years ago, Vietnam veterans were not inclined to join the American Legion, but today we have, I believe you might know this, more Vietnam veterans than we have Second World War veterans, because of the ages of the Second World War veterans, because they realized what they did do for the country, and they're proud. I'll be proud as they are, as they will be, to pass these along to our children.
You have been County Legionnaire of the Year in the past?
Yes.
And you have also been Grand Marshal of the Hillsdale Memorial Day Parade.
I was so honored.
Yeah, that's quite an accomplishment. I'd like to thank you for your service to the country. I'd like to thank you to the service to the American Legion and the service that you provided to our town as well.
Well,
and you've had a very interesting career.
I thank you.
Thank you.
And I thank you for your service.
Welcome.